All right, y'all. So as always, let's start this thing off right. Prayers and condolences, love and light to the families affected by this tragic situation. All right. Now, with that being said, real quick, if you new, man, shout outs to y'all for hitting that like button like y'all been doing. Oh my goodness, man. Y'all have been just straight going crazy. So continue to help us unplug more people out the matrix by hitting that like button. And if you're new, subscribe. All right. So here we are, right? Man who turned down trip on ill-fated submersible says CEO brushed off his concerns. And now the caption reads, Ocean Gate under intense scrutiny after implosion. Let's check this out.
Any moment, we could start to see, right, the mothership of the Titan vessel, the Polar Prince, and other rescue ships returning.
Yeah, Aaron. In fact, we have been monitoring boat traffic in the last several minutes, and we see that there are two ships that are returning right here to where we are, harborside in St. John's. One of them is a Canadian Coast Guard ship, and the other is a private vessel. Both of them had been participating in the search and rescue mission, and they're returning to shore. Also coming back here to where we are is the Polar Prince. Now, the Polar Prince had been operating as a mothership to the Titan, and the Polar Prince is carrying what is left of Ocean Gate's crew. Now, you can just imagine what that crew has been through over the last several days. First, losing contact with their vessel on Sunday, then trying to look for it, trying to attempt some sort of rescue, only to learn of that catastrophic implosion.
Listen, I come from fire. I have a fire department background. For those of you who haven't been with me and watching this channel for a minute, those who have, y'all know I have a fire department background. Those who haven't, yes, I do. And what I'm saying is those guys are going to need a stress debriefing. They're going to need some type of sit down conversation with people just to make sure they're okay. You know what I mean? That goes without saying for the families. They're going to need for this type of situation. But the crew members as well, they're going to need some type of sit down with somebody for any type of PTSD or critical stress debriefing type of situations here.
Now, even though the Polar Prince is returning here to port, it doesn't mean that the recovery mission is over. In fact, the remote operating vehicle that first found the debris of the vessel is back out on a second mission. That's the Odysseus, and it is back out at the bottom of the ocean as we speak. And it's mapping the area where the debris might be found. That is going to be critical information, especially now that we know that the Canadian Transportation Board is conducting an investigation. They're going to need that information in order to figure out what happened here and whether it could have been prevented. Aaron?
All right, Gloria, thank you very much. And out front now, as promised.
Thank y'all, by the way, as well, for letting me know what ROV stood for. Appreciate y'all. Everybody was breaking it down for me.
Jay Bloom and his son, Sean. Jay gave up their seats on the Titan for this trip. Another father and son did take those seats. They went on the Titan and, as we know, sadly and tragically lost their lives.
Look at his face. Look at his face. He gonna need to talk to somebody too. You can see it in his face, his demeanor. Because what you have here, what you're witnessing right now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is a real life Final Destination moment to him. I don't know if he's seen the movies like I did, and some of y'all have, a lot of y'all have, but that's a real life for me to say, nah, I'm not going to go and I'm going to sit this one out. And then something tragic like this happens. Bro, like all that would be in my mind is Final Destination, Final Destination. I just escaped a situation where others die. Whew.
So I appreciate both of you taking the time to talk to me about this. Jay, I know initially you and Sean were both very intrigued by taking a trip on the Titan, right? You're in that small group of people, right, that just have that intrepid curiosity. You were curious about it. When you first learned that the Titan was missing, and then on those days they were hoping for rescue, you're imagining like everybody else, but for you it's different, that it could have been you down there, right, gasping for air. Then you find out it imploded. And you keep seeing images of the father and son who did take your seats. What went through your mind?
Well, it's a very surreal experience in the beginning. You're supposed to be on that. We had the opportunity to be on that sub, and you see all this. It's everywhere we looked. And the most haunting thing about it is when you look at the news and open my laptop, on social media, on television. It was everywhere, and they'd show pictures of the people who lost their lives, and all I could see when I saw that father and son was myself and my son.
Yep.
That could have been us in that picture.
And Sean, I mean, obviously, the other young man there, he was 19, you're 20, right? I mean, it is eerie, the parallels. What did you first think when you learned what happened?
When the news initially broke, before the news initially broke, when we were considering actually going on the submarine ourselves, one of the safety concerns I had before getting on was literally about the structural integrity of the submarine. Before we got on, I saw a video of Stockton explaining how the submarine worked with the remote and everything like that, and I saw a lot of red flags with it, and it was only meant for 5 people, and I just didn't think that it could survive, going that low into the ocean. So ultimately,
Wow. She said he's 20. Wow. Very, very smart and intelligent 20-year-old. For him to basically look at a lot of people wouldn't look at reviews. You think about it, man. Some people just want to go and just experience, and they don't think about it. They're not the type of person that go to a restaurant and first, before they go, they want to see the Yelp reviews. You know what I mean? I'm guilty of not doing that sometimes. I've gotten better at that. Queen has got me better at that. I can't go anywhere without looking at the reviews these days to make sure that this is up to the standard that I would like to attend and eat at and have fine dining. But a lot of people don't. So for him, 20 years old, to say, nah, I have concerns, structural integrity, I have concerns. That says a lot about him, man. Wow.
that it could survive, going that low into the ocean. So ultimately I ended up warning my dad about it, and he ended up agreeing with me. And when we tried to ask Stockton questions, he kind of, brushed it off a little bit. So it's kind of red flags from the start. And then when the story came out, on the first day, initially we thought that the first thing we thought is that the submarine imploded, because it's very difficult for a submarine of that size to get to the bottom of the ocean and not implode. But that was the first thing that went through our head, was it either imploded or it got stuck under the Titanic on the first day.
Right, and I know, you had these concerns. Jay, what's interesting is you had an
I'm learning so much about these submersibles, bro. Like, he just said that it's difficult for it to get down there without imploding. That's a huge red flag for me. It's difficult, meaning the odds are against me. Yeah.
exchange with Stockton Rush in April. He says, quote, have space on mission 1 and 2 last minute. Price is $150 per person. You reply, I'll check my schedule and see if I can make it work. 3 days later, he says, any luck? And at one point, I know that he went to Vegas. He actually traveled to Vegas to see you, to try to meet with you, to close the deal. Now, Jay's sitting here talking about red flags. What about that trip raised a red flag to you? I mean, he came all the way to see you to try to get you to buy these tickets.
Yeah. Stockton, I think his heart was in the right place, and he really was passionate about his project, and he believed everything he was saying. But one of the things that concerned me was he told me he was flying in to see me, and he was landing at North Las Vegas Airport, which is an odd selection. Most people that come in privately come into either McCarran, which is now Harry Reid International, or they come into Henderson Executive. And I asked him why, and he said he was coming in on a 2-seater experimental plane that he built. And I started to think about, he's coming in on a 2-seater experimental plane to pitch me out to go on a 5-seater experimental sub that he built down to the ocean floor to see the Titanic. And he has a different risk appetite than I do.
why like these words that just keep being used? Yesterday it was basic. Now all I'm hearing is experimental. Like this is a prime situation of more will be revealed. Experimental? When do we? This is the first time I'm hearing experimental. You came in to see him on an experimental plane, to take him on an experimental submersible. Wow. Just hearing those words. I always listen out for things like that.
And it was he has a different risk appetite than I do. I'm a pilot. I have my helicopter pilot's license. I wouldn't get into an experimental aircraft.
I mean, Sean, when you think about what happened here and how close you were to being on this, right? I mean, I know that you all thought about it. Did you ever convey to Stockton Rush safety concerns? I mean, I know at one point, Jay, you talked about a friend of Sean's who was worried about things like a squid hitting it, and he dismissed those concerns. But did you talk to him about some of your serious structural issues and worries that you had?
Yeah, he came out to Las Vegas in March to see me. We met a couple of times in person, but the March trip, he came out. He actually took me through the Titanic exhibition at the Luxor, and then we had lunch after. And we talked about the expedition that he wanted to go on, and he walked me through it. And then we talked about the safety concerns. And I think he had so much passion for the project that he was blinded by it. He wasn't objective, and he didn't look at things that I saw and that others saw that were problematic because it just didn't fit his narrative.
Sean,
it's unfortunate,
I mean, it's tragic. And Sean, I began by saying you and your dad are the kinds of people who would consider something like this. You're already in a small group, right, of people who.
Have y'all ever met somebody like that? That is just so laser focused, so tunnel vision on them that they block out and tune out people's concerns, legit people's concerns. People who have the right to express these concerns because of their backgrounds and different things they've accomplished in their life and done in that same field, that might say, hey, the technology that you're using, I don't know if I would go with that. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe this. Maybe is the inspection up to date? That person is just so tunnel vision. That's scary.
Who find this to be something that could, instill curiosity as opposed to, right? So where are you now? Has this changed how you see it? Would you ever consider doing a trip like this again now that you've seen this happen?
I mean, it's very sad and tragic that I kind of predicted this outcome. My dad was very excited to go, and he was very excited to take me because I was obsessed with the Titanic as a little kid, and I was really looking forward to doing it. But the second I saw the submarine and how it worked, like I knew that one of the first outcomes, me and my friend Simon, actually, that friend that everyone was talking about, we both knew immediately that this submarine couldn't make it to the bottom of the ocean. And it's sad that our prediction came true, but as far as us doing something like this ever again, I mean, the ocean is scarier than space. We know more about space than we do about the ocean, and it's definitely not something we're ever going to be trying to do again. You know what I mean? Like, it just was not for us,
Well, I'm glad you're both together and you're safe, and I know you have an appreciation for that now.
We're not done. We're gonna look at something else, but you just heard him say it's gonna be hard pressed for him to ever do something like that again, right? He don't see himself. That just pretty much just ruined. I want to check out this other video, right? This Titanic exhibition producer recalls the friends. We're going to check this one out, too.
Tom, my sympathies to you and to others who were so close to the crew, including Mr. Rush. But let me, if you don't mind, get a sense, since you had a chance to talk to him, that is Rush, before their departure, was he worried about anything? Was he saying anything? What?
No, Stockton and I have known each other for less than a year. We were working together to bring his footage as well as his vision, which was just described very, very nicely about travel and exploration into deep water and the unknown, into our Titanic exhibition, and using the newest footage from the submersible, but also to encourage not just diving to the Titanic, but this exploration of hydrothermal vents and other wreck sites and other natural wonders in the world. I mean, he was somebody I've read some prompt earlier. People were talking about true explorers. I mean, these guys were to the core. I mean, PH has dove the Titanic at 35 times. I mean, I got involved in this industry in 1998. PH had already been in it for 25 years. I mean, there's no
wow.
There's no. Sadly, it's a friend of, we're in a group of all of us are texting one another who are connected to this world, or those who know each other. And a close friend said it's almost poetic that PH would find his final piece in a place right at the bow of the Titanic. It's crazy to, in a way, I think we're all happy that it's over. And we know, I think a lot of people believed at the time that they lost communication at that depth. It likely was an implosion, which is what it sounds like it's coming out now. I just want to send my support and love to all the family members of people that are on that board that ship that I knew and those that I didn't know, and hopefully there's maritime lessons.
One thing you're seeing consistently, right? People who are in that world, people who this is their life. You know what I mean? Stuff like this. This is what they do. This is what they study. This is what they work at. This is what they pay attention to. They eat, sleep, and breathe it, right? What we're consistently seeing them say is they knew instantly. They knew without a shadow of a doubt, instantly, that it was probably implosion. It was over. It was over. Quickly. He just said when they lost communication, he knew. Implosion. It's over. This is like, we've never seen anything like this before. And I've been one who's been an advocate of wanting to explore. If you go down the list of videos we've looked at, a lot of those have been videos of things discovered in the ocean, because I know how much of it or how little of it has yet to be discovered. So new species, different things like that under there. Seeing this gives me another level of respect that I already had for it. This ocean, man, it's a monster. It's a beast.
That are learned from this, like a lot of people are talking about. Like the Titanic taught us so many lessons, that this is a modern day tragedy, and adding to that list of people who perished on that site.
It's interesting talking to you, Tom, because you always give such a great view of the people and these individuals who are bigger than life, including Paul-Henri Nogelet, who's this iconic global figure, this Mr. Titanic who knows it so well, and he goes by the nickname PH. There's something very refreshing about that. I am curious, and you mentioned what happened here. Maybe the families, yourself and others, can be consoled by the fact that whatever happened, we don't know the details behind this, catastrophic implosion, but that it was likely quick. What do you think?
I think that's what we all, anybody who dives at that depth realizes that. Even me, I'm a novice. I was fortunate to be an observer on board a vessel to dive to the Titanic. But we all knew if something went wrong that was going to be bad, it was an instant. It was. We used to always say, obviously, you'd never have a pinprick, but if a pinprick, I was explaining this to my 11-year-old daughter about an hour ago about what pressure is and the amount of extreme pressure on any vessel at that depth. The idea of 6,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. And I was then telling her the difference between implosion and explosion and what that means. And I don't know what happened. I'm not a scientist or can tell you about stress fractures and carbon fiber hulls. That's not what I do, but I'm sure it was very quick. And I hope I should say that it was very quick for.
I knew he was going to say hope.
all those passengers.
You know, Tom, they're trying, working backwards to put a TikTok on all of this. Very hard to do, as you were pointing out. But what we have learned here, just looking at the timeline, is that last Sunday, June 18th, when they departed, it was an hour and 45 minutes before all communications ceased from the submersible. So
That's what
I'm
I
going to
wanna
work
know.
backwards on, not that you have to tell me the exact depth they were at, but if you're an hour and 45 minutes into what some have described like a slow free fall descent, an hour and 45 minutes, you'd still be substantially above the Titanic. So much of the earlier concerns that it got entangled in the wreckage don't seem borne out.
So basically, you're trying to say that it's a possibility they didn't even make it to the Titanic? If at an hour and something they lost communication? And that's where possibly the implosion could have happened?
Here, right?
Well, so again, I'm not an expert, but I'll say that the descent is somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours. So if you're losing contact, which also loss of radio communication happens, it's
And
not
those deaths.
necessarily uncommon. So if they were, it's so hard to speculate. It's really not my place to do so, but I feel they certainly were deep enough to where a catastrophic event could have taken place. If you're at 3,000 meters or you're at 3,800 meters, you're still a long way deep in the ocean, and the pressure is incredible. So I don't think we'll ever. I don't know if there's a little black box on board, something like that, or if it would even survive that type of situation. But I hope if for the families that they can get, that information will help give them what they need. But I think we all know these, particularly PH and Stockton, they're explorers, and they absolutely, all those people on board knew the risks they were taking. And I don't know the other 3 people, but I know that they wanted to be there. And so there's no better way to die than doing something you love.
Tom, the director, James Cameron, of course, of Titanic fame, he was leery of some of these submersibles, not this company in particular, but even his own, that are configured very, very differently. I don't believe there are any windows on those at all, but that it's dangerous. And he would keep reminding people, this isn't like a Disney ride. I'm probably quoting it, I apologize. But alerting people to the dangers of this. What do you think?
Well, James Cameron is an expert in deep water,
right?
Particularly deep water ocean cinematography. I mean, obviously, his Titanic film was probably the most famous absolutely the most famous Titanic film of all time. But he has a special interest in the deep ocean, and I'm sure. I don't know all of what his opinion is on this sub versus another, but I know that he cares deeply about the deep ocean too, like PH, like Stockton. I know PH and James Cameron were friends. I'm sure Stockton and PH, they all probably know each other. It's a small community of people.
Right.
That's what we learned.
And I think that, look, you were, the sub that I dove in is called a Mir submersible, and that sub has been to the Titanic and those depths hundreds and hundreds of times. And so it's battle tested, so to speak. It's also a pressure sphere. So I think when you're pushing the limits of look at rockets going to space, look at, that's what Stockton, I think, was trying to do, was figure out a way.
That's another thing. All these little space expeditions, people who had money and were billionaires were ready and lined up and paying high prices to do that. How do you think that's going to go now? How do you think that's going to go down? You think that man had to fly in somewhere, Elon, and they're going to have to fly in. They're going to have to show them safety. They're going to have to bend over backwards now to get people to go, because this situation here has opened a lot of people's eyes. And it sucks that it took this to do that. But man, it's going to be hard. It may be even hard for them to get clearances now. There may be a whole new protocol that comes out that you have to go through. before you can even start soliciting out to people to take these rides and trips and do these explorations.
For more people to be able to see the wonders of the ocean. And that was his dream and his vision. I think PH shared that same thing. And sometimes when you're doing new things and pushing the limits, terrible things happen.
You know, 2 of these 5 passengers, Tom, were members of this Explorers Club. I guess that's a unique fraternity of individuals who are into dangerous discovery as well. I don't know whether it's in all of their DNA, but
did y'all know there was a club? Like, I didn't even know. See, these secret societies are popping up now.
Risk is just an accepted part of it. You were talking about your friends you knew who were on this. Could you confirm that?
I mean, yeah, I think there's certain people who are explorers. You know, that's look at history, right?
Right.
Absolutely, no doubt. The 2 men that were on board that ship that I knew, and I hadn't talked to PH in many years, and I met Stockton this past year, but I know them and know what they were, who they were, and they were 100% explorers to the end. And it sounds like the other 4 gentlemen on board, three gentlemen on board, sorry, were absolutely wanted to follow in that path and set new ground. Obviously, they're very successful people, so I don't know. Yes, they knew the risks and probably loved part of that.
Would you ever do something like this, Tom, again?
You know, after my dive, my friends asked me that. This was before my first son was born when I did, and I said absolutely 100%. I have to say that the mere submersibles that I was in are, you know, they were tried and true and tested. I still feel very comfortable, but you definitely think twice after a day like today.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's understandable.
Probably. I probably would.
All right. I had a feeling you'd answer that way.
Titanic's been a part of my life for a long, long time, and so any chance to be with her again is it's changed. My best friends in the world came out of my relationships from being associated with the Titanic on so many different levels. So, probably.
You know, Tom, I lied when I said that would be a last question, but I was curious what you thought there. I've read reports that the wreckage, inconceivable as it is, of the Titanic, it's been there, for 111 years, it won't be there much longer. Some say maybe within a decade, maybe 2, it'll all be gone. What do you think of that? You
know, you have this image now that I think, if the timing's right, of what we call rusticles that are sort of an iron ore eating bacteria that looks kind of like an icicle. So the rusticle, the name was come up with, I think, by a Canadian scientist named Roy Collymore. But they've been saying that for a long time.
They have, actually,
It's a big ship, and it is one of the things that makes it special today too is, you know, she's standing proud, as you can see from the footage. She's still upright, and there's a lot of metal, and there's not a lot of life, and there's not a lot of current. There's, as you know, there's no light, so there's not. So I think wrecks deteriorate at different over different periods of time, depending upon their depth and depending upon what's in the sediment around them. But, you know, I remember in 1987, somebody said, you know, in a decade, she'll be a stain on the ocean floor. And she still, from the footage I've seen today, she still looks pretty good because nobody's down there messing with her.
Definitely still at this depth and being down there this long is still just like, wow, mesmerizing, breathtaking, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's bumping into it. There's no tourist dives that are swimming through her. She's not in water with more life. So, you know, I think she'll be there for a little while, but I'm no expert.
You're more of an expert than you think, Tom, and you're also very modest. But thank you, Tom, for taking the time to talk to us.
So yeah, that's the end of the video, man. Again, I like to end the video the same way we started it. Prayers, condolences, love and light to the families, man. This is just a tragic situation, but in this tragic situation, we are learning a lot. Myself, I'm passing it down to my family, letting them know about it. You know what I'm saying? And you guys should do the same. So, like I said before, continue to help us unplug more people out of the matrix by hitting that like button. Y'all stick around and stay tuned, man. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.